I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
Shout out to our sponsors. Major Team Mortgage, Omaha Laser Dentistry, Exclusively Eye Care, Liberty Core Real Estate, Avier Wealth Management, and Apex Men's Clinic. We appreciate their support.
Hey Gloom listeners, it's the Plague. Question for you, are you ready to perform at your peak? Well, our man Pea Soup and the Apex Men's Clinic is here to help you achieve optimal health. Whether it's managing general health concerns, recovering from injuries, or optimizing your hormones, they have you covered. Their comprehensive services include testosterone replacement therapy, cutting-edge treatments, and personalized care plans tailored just for you. At Apex Men's Clinic, you're not just another number. Their expert team is dedicated to helping you feel your best. Visit apexmensclinic.com today to schedule a free consultation. At Apex Men's Clinic, it's men's health done right.
Now let's get back to the gloom.
And we're back. This is a guy I'm excited to get to know this guy a little bit more because I've really only seen him out in the gloom a few times, had a few brief conversations. I've been impressed with his physique. I think when we were at this recent shuttle flag pass, I was sort of like, man, is that the lights of the stadium or what is that? But anyway, I'm excited to hear.
Padded shirt. Yeah. That's what it is. Padded shirt.
Yeah, you get smaller shirts and padded shorts. I don't know. But anyway, I've got Black Tuesday on, and man, it's good to see you. And where we like to start off is just who EH'd you. Tell us about that first workout if you remember, and then how'd you get the name Black Tuesday?
Yeah, definitely. So thanks for having me on. Glad to be here. So who EH'd me is somewhat, there's kind of two parts. So officially, Chernobyl EH'd me. I've known Chernobyl for about 12 years now. So we worked together a couple of times. We actually worked out together long ago before we had kids. The first time that I heard about F3 was actually from OG Kickstand. So we work together now, and he had mentioned something about it, and I had I want to say like a 6-month-old at the time, and I kind of had the excuse like, there's no way I can make it out. But, thanks for letting me know. This sounds really interesting. And then I saw Chernobyl post something on Facebook like, hey, this has changed my life. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, this is the second time I've heard somebody talk about this group. I better reach out and see what's going on there. So messaged Chernobyl, and I was oversharing a little bit. I was coming off of a procedure that was going to prevent me from having any more kids. And so that was my next excuse, like, hey, I can't make it out a little bit. And it was probably January. I'm like, it's cold out, all these other things. And I remember, I think I messaged him at one time. It's like 15 degrees outside. Are you guys still going to be out there? He's like, oh yeah, we've been out there and colder. But got a warmer day, one of those, fake spring days in February where it was, I don't know, 40 degrees, maybe something along those lines. And it was at the danger zone. So I was a couple minutes late, so I missed the intro, had a water bottle. I remember that, just like all the other F&Gs. And Chernobyl was excited to see me. And I thought I was in, fair shape, even though I had taken things a little bit easy after the surgery. And Toadstool was queuing. Ran a couple of laps. I was like, okay, this is pretty easy. Did a little warmer-rama thing. And then went and did some 10 burpees, bear crawl, 10 more burpees. And after that, I was shot. And this was 5 minutes into the beat down. Got to the point where we were going all over the stadium. I was pretty sure I was going to die. I was like, I'm going to either pass out or throw up, something along the lines of that. And so I got to the point where I was just trying to walk with the group between stations. I could see, feel the eyes on me, like, is this guy going to make it? Is he going to be okay? Do we need to give him some water or something like that? But at the end of it, the rest of what workout or what exercises happened, I don't remember that much, other than there were some stations around the stadium at the danger zone. And I think I was probably squatting down or had my hands on my knees, something like that. I was like, what am I getting myself into? This is not for me going into the COT. And I don't remember what Toadstool specifically stated, but there was something along the lines of, don't let those internal demons get to you. And everybody out there has things that are preventing them from getting out and doing something better or being as good as they can be. And it was just like the lights turned on. I was like, wow, okay, there's something more with this. And I am in the right place. I may not be in the shape that I want to be yet, but this is the right place for me. And that's the long, short story for how I got to, at least through my first beatdown, how I got my name. So I could tell Chernobyl had like a long list of names that he was planned. And it was funny because he's just sitting there like throwing them out like one after the other. And you could tell he really wanted someone to pick one of those. And I mentioned everything about myself. And I think I mentioned one line about the fact that I was essentially dedicated to Facebook at the time as a client. And someone mentioned like, hey, didn't their stock just take a dump yesterday? Like, we need a stock market joke, Black Tuesday. Like, okay, that doesn't really relate to me at the time. And I was very, at the time I was unconvinced of like, this doesn't really tie to me. What is it? And now, I mean, I love the name. It's awesome. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's such a great name. How'd you get it? And so not as much of a tire as people would think. It was just kind of right time, right place, and it worked out. So happy about it now.
Man, I love it. And there's so much detail there. A couple things I want to unpack. So you were working out with, like, were you working out with like Chernobyl and the Dip Brothers and like kind of back in the day? Like, growing up, I guess, what was your sort of fitness routine like, or how that?
Yeah. So I played sports growing up, so football, wrestling. So I was always in pretty decent shape pre-college, through college, kind of got into I would do, random stuff, run here, play intramural sports and stuff like that. And my fitness really dropped off after college. I mean, I think I gained like 20 pounds my first couple of years. I had a real job. I could, buy whatever I want, eat whatever I want. And I put on probably like 20 pounds. I think I got up to probably like 235. I'm around like 210, 215 now. But Chernobyl, when I was working out with him, it was actually pre Dip Brothers. I don't think that he didn't live in his house now, but we were both working at the same company. Our wives were pregnant at the same time. And we would go over lunch and we would joke with each other, like, we got to look good in that first skin to skin test. Is what we kind of joked around about. But Chernobyl, I will say, was the same hammer that he is today then. Because he would like pick a specific muscle group in your arms. It wasn't even like arms. He's like, we're working on tries today. And that's it. And we would go just burn out the muscles for an hour. And funny story that I tell everybody about this when I talk about Chernobyl is it got to the point that my wife actually is like, you need to like lay off on the upper body for just like a couple of weeks. Like, you're getting a little, she used the term, she goes, you're getting a little beefy. And I was like, okay, all right, I guess I can take a step back. So we can switch to legs for a little bit. I became that guy for a short period of time.
Man, that's funny. I love that. So, and then you got to this point where, like, how many kids do you have? I guess because you had a surgery to stop having kids, basically. So I'm assuming you have 9, right? But
yeah, you would think so. I've got 3 kids, so I mean they keep me active. I love it. They changed my life. I think every dad probably would say that. But wanted more. But there are a couple things. Pregnancy and children. There's a lot of things that are unexpected, make things a little bit more tough than planned. And it's like, okay, you know what? I've got enough troubling things. 3 is a great number. So that, and somebody told me, like, you got to think about this. You get more than, you have a 4th kid, you can no longer rent a sedan on vacation.
Yeah, well, that's a good.
And I'm like, okay, I guess you got a point. So yeah,
for sure. Well, I think about these guys like Cataracts and Splinter that have, I don't know, 8 or 9 kids, and you're just at some point like, how do you even keep track of that many? I don't know.
I know at that point you probably have to have them incorporate the buddy system, like, buddy, like, okay, hey, who's your buddy today? Do not lose them because mom and dad are gonna need a little bit of help. So.
For sure. Well, so your first workout, and Toadstool, man, he cues a lot of hard workouts, so that's a good one to hop in on your first one. What was your progression like after that? Like, was it, you were in, it sounds like, so then did you go the next day, or did you take a few days off, or how'd you work through that?
Yeah, and that's a great point. So I'm going to shout out to OG Kickstand on that one, because afterwards I got back and I remember I was sitting at the desk and I texted him. I'm like, hey, I finally made it out and like legit, like this is awesome, love it. And I was planning. I was like, okay, I got to take a couple of days off. In my head, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I am just smoked after that one. And he's all like, oh, awesome. And he had been kind of just in and out for a little while, and he hadn't been posted in like at least 2 months. He's like, actually, that's great. He's like, you want to post tomorrow? I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm posting tomorrow. And so posted at Steel Mill, which was a great at the time for me, for my body type recovery. It was great to just do like lifting and weights, stuff like that. It worked out great because cardio was what really smoked me on that first one. And then after that, I went pretty strong. I'm trying to think, at a certain point, I made a goal of posting at least 4 times a week. And I think I was pretty close to that for at least the first year. And I'm trying to think of, I don't know at what point I got to 4 times a week. Might have taken me a couple of weeks to get there. But once I got started, I mean, I loved it. I love being outside, second F, third F, all those things are, like I said, they have a big impact on you. And I don't know, it's just something special about not only F3 as a F3 nation, but F3 Omaha's got definitely some special stuff going on. So
for sure. Well, and I guess I'm curious your like, did you think about, you mentioned some of the maybe weight loss or, just like, how do you feel today? Is it in terms of getting back into fitness? Are you where you want to be, or where are you trying to go?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, so being a wrestler, weight is kind of always a touchy subject, but not in a bad way, but it's like, do I want to lose more? Do I want to put on more weight? Where I'm at now, I'm happy. I think the wrestler in me is like, I could probably lose, 5 or 10 more pounds, from where I was at, get back to my wrestling weight. Happy where I'm at now, but, so reading through, Free to Lead and Q Source and stuff like that, and all the clean service, items there is in the Pogo 40, like reading the Pogo 40 chapter, or the stuff about Pogo 40 and Free to Lead really hit home with me, because both exercise wise and nutrition wise, that is, I mean, Pogo is the best way to describe it. Like, prior to F3, my fitness was absolutely pogoing up and down. I would hit it hard for a month, maybe a little bit longer, maybe it was only a couple of days, and then I would fall off again. Nutrition is still one that's tough for me. I try to be better about it, and I'm in a good spot right now, but you talk to me in a month and I'll probably be like, oh man, I was eating popcorn before bed, or I was eating ice cream and the kids left the Oreos out. So, they caught me with the mousetrap kind of thing. But overall, happy. And I can say that, I mean, F3 has been a huge part of that, and all the other packs are great to be able to talk through it, because everyone's got some aspect of that, and maybe they're better about it and they can share, hey, here's what I've done, or they're struggling with it as well. And you can kind of, shield lock a little bit with them on that to try and make yourself a little bit better, hold each other accountable.
Man, diet is so tough for me, at least. And it's like, I justify it, right? My kids are young, so then I eat the leftovers plus my own meal, a lot of chicken fingers and mac and cheese at our place. So I don't know.
Yeah, the dad tax is real, and it adds up on you. You're paying the tax. You don't realize that. It's not that you're getting it. You're just paying the dad tax there.
For sure. Have you participated in Queen Service yet, or had a chance to do that, or not yet?
I have not. So I did. So I haven't participated in that. I have started logging, and at least weighing myself daily and logging that, just because that for me helps a lot to keep it in check and help with the pogo aspect. I can see if I'm starting to climb up a little bit, and like it does help me think back and reflect on, okay, what's causing me to have that? What was I eating that was causing that? And so I've noticed that it does. So maybe somewhat of an unofficial Queen Service, just dabbling, dipping my toe in there a little bit going on. But that's another one that is just huge for F3 and the things that it can do to help us all be better. So I probably should jump in officially, I should say. But it's good.
Yeah, well, and I think they start at different times. Something I'm curious about, because you kind of hit on, and I think I know where you're getting at with this, but like, as a wrestler, measuring your weight or weighing in is like, that's what you do. That's how you know the class you're going to fight in and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how how do we use weight as like a helpful metric or guide, but not over obsess about it? Have you found a way to sort of live in a safe space there where it's not becoming a dangerous thing to monitor daily, or what's your take
Hmm. So for me, and one thing that I use that's helpful, so I've got one of it's not anything fancy, one of the smart
on
scales.
that?
So it gives me kind of metrics and dictates all of it, gives you information that's kind of general, average ranges and healthy versus other things. Now I'm with my body type, even without the padded shirt, I tend to be on the heavier side just because I need to gain a couple inches for my weight technically for like BMI. But I think if you're able to use that scale, so the one thing that scale helps me with a lot is it measures body fat as well and kind of all the other things. So it helps give me a little more perspective. And I would say for some of those bigger guys and bigger bone guys, 'cause I mean that's just a legit thing. Oh, there's a lot of muscular guys in F3 too. And even if you're not that muscular and you get into F3, you start doing it and you're going to build some muscle. And being able to understand where your body type fits, I think is a big part of that, because somebody else, I'm 5'10", 5'11". Some guys are going to be 160 and healthy. Some guys are going to be 180, 90, 200. I mean, like I said, I'm like 210-ish right now, and they can be healthy at that weight. But a struggle that I think that's out there is, I mean, so my BMI says that I'm, overweight. I'm bordering between overweight and obese based upon my BMI. But body fat wise, it wouldn't align with obese by any means. Could I lose a couple pounds? Yeah. The wrestler in me, I could always lose a couple pounds, But I think that there are probably some real struggles. I mean, it's kind of a hard thing, I think, for a man. If you go to your doctor every time and they give you the printout, like your doctor might not even say anything about it, but if you read the printout and it's like obese or overweight automatically, and it's purely just looking at height and weight. So the thing that I emphasize to anybody is, like, if you got a way to look at some other factors other than just height and weight, unfortunately we're not all sized to fit on the same bleacher spot on Memorial Stadium. The 15-inch width bleacher spot anymore. So, we kind of have to adjust to that. Just like in a beatdown, you got to adjust as necessary for your body. I think understanding a couple of those metrics, and also, where do you feel? Do you feel better? Like, I know I feel a lot better around like this weight, but I still, I'll jump up and down a little bit, 5 pounds here and there, and I feel better when I'm just a little bit lower, and I'm at a good point. Where I'm at right now, I feel great. You still hear me saying I could lose a little bit of weight, but I think if you understand where you're comfortable at, where your body feels good at, my sleep's good at this point. Working out feels good when I'm out in the gloom. Doesn't feel like I'm carrying a ton of extra weight, things like that. So listen to your body.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned earlier a little bit like the applausometer from your M, right? Might be another.
Yeah, exactly. That part too.
Yeah. You look good, then I don't know.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because there's all sorts of times I'm like, I need to lose a little bit of weight. She's like, I don't think you need to lose any weight. I'm like, okay, maybe I should listen to that outside. On that note, I think, inherently we all have that little voice inside our head that sometimes, like, can't help it. I don't know how everybody else's shower is, but I feel like a lot of showers you step out and you're looking into the mirror and you're like, oh wow, okay, do I look good or could I lose a little bit?
Right.
Kind of thing. So
yeah, and we each know that, like, how to stand in the lighting to make it look better or worse. Right? Yeah. It's funny that that's like sort of this reality, but yeah, it's interesting, and I feel like I've got 2 girls, and I think body image issues with women are well known and talked about all the time, but not really with men. We don't talk about that stuff probably as much as we should. But no, I appreciate your insights there, and I love that idea of just like get a few more metrics if you're really focused on the data, but also just listen to your body, and how you're feeling. I remember Ponzi. Pax, formerly known as Ponzi, he's still alive. He's just not in Omaha, but he did a food journal,
gone but not
like you're talking about, and really realized that he had some different allergies or just foods that he wasn't going to eat anymore because of how they made him feel. Yeah. So there's a lot we can do just in that space by keeping track of what we put in. But want to segue just a little bit to like the second F. space and just kind of get your thoughts on, so you get EH by this guy who's sort of a longtime friend, right? It sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come into the group and you start, like, how did that progress with relationships? Was it like all of a sudden there's got other guys from high school or from work, or what was that like for you?
Mm-hmm. So other than the couple of guys that I mentioned, I don't think initially I started seeing a lot of the connections of people that I had known. More so it was new individuals that I was meeting. And I think at first it might have been, for me, I don't know, kind of awkward. I think that was in my head again too. Like, I'm just showing up, assuming all these guys have known each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm just the new guy showing up. And I remember, I think I was honestly, I was probably in my head a little bit about it. And then everybody, you realize guys start reaching out and saying stuff and talking and kind of just break down those barriers for that are going to exist, kind of in any, just you go to a random happy hour for work for a bunch of people that you don't know, similar things. And I think I probably took that approach to it. Like, hey, all these people have cliques or something like that. In my head, I thought was the case. But in reality, like I said, then you realize you can be moseying with somebody random and they mention something. I think I showed up to a sweet roll beatdown when this was early on. It was really cold. So it was after that fake spring was over, the first couple of weeks that I was out. And I don't know how cold it was. There were only 3 or 4 guys there, and I don't know. Sweet Roll jokes about it now because he's like, you showed up looking like the Michelin Man, like with all the layers I had on. And eventually just started, taking layers off. And Sweet Roll, I remember him specifically just like, hey, talk to me. Nothing specific, no agenda, just trying to get to know me. And then I realized, I'm like, okay, this is just what it is, and that the fellowship aspect is real. And then a couple of the other things that really helped build and emphasize the fellowship, cafeteria. I mean, that's huge. Just whether it's on site or running somewhere, or Fairy Nectar, another one. So Sarpy has any of the other happy hours. Sorry, I'm not shout out to any of the DC happy hours or the Westo happy hours. They're all good things, but those were really big for me. Just especially, if it's the cafeterias are great because everybody has all the problems in your day to day, or maybe you've got a lot going on at work. And sometimes, pre F3, you wake up and you automatically start thinking about how you're going to attack the day, how you're going to handle that problem or some of the problems that we're going. And the fellowship that you're able to get for that, 15, 20 minutes with a cup of coffee, or, same thing at a happy hour or a little bit longer in the end of the day, end of the week. It's just, I don't know, it's awesome. It's unreal. Built a lot of what I feel like are meaningful and strong relationships, people that I feel like I can reach out to. And additionally, seeing what a lot of those individuals did and those packs did originally, it kind of helps me to encourage doing the same thing. So somebody new, if I hear something or if they mention something, they just drop a note about something negative in their life or something like that. They might just mention it briefly and then try and change the subject. I feel a little more encouraged to be like, hey, come on, let's talk about that. Like, how you doing? If they don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But I think a lot of times in the less deep relationships and maybe some of the superficial relationships we have, you'll drop some of those things and you'll be like, oh, I'm not gonna touch that one. That seems like we're gonna have to talk a lot about it. That's a little deep, a little touchy feely. Let's push that one to the side. When you're out in the gloom and with the fellowship that you develop and the relationships you develop, you really are able to lean on some of those packs, which is great. If people are reaching out too, like, you may not even happen at the beatdown, but somebody texting you afterwards and saying, hey, great job, or hope you're doing good, happy to help out, heard you had this going on, let me know if there's anything I can do. All those things have been really difference makers. And like I said, another reason I can go on and on and on. Anytime my M says, she's like, oh, here he goes. If I start talking about F3, she's like, okay, yeah, all right, okay, he's going to talk about this for a little bit. Let this go. So, but she encourages it. It's
I love it. No, it's funny. That's why when a bunch of us get together in a room, our wives are just sort of rolling their eyes, right? They're like, it's,
yeah.
I ran into Hoser at this event that both of our wives had brought us to, and we didn't know we were going. And it's like our wives drug us there at the beginning, and then by the end they were trying to get us to leave, right? Because we're like, all of a sudden we can
Hey,
start talking.
yeah.
What do you?
Did you guys know? Oh, sorry. Did you guys know that you were both going to be there, or did you see each other once
No,
you got
no, it was
there?
funny. We went up to get a drink, and I looked over, and I'm like, "What's up, man?" And then I look back, and I'm like, "Hoser?" He's like, "Plague?" It's like, and then we just started.
Yeah.
You look different outside of the gloom, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
then we just talked the whole time, which was wild. But yeah, it was
Oh
good.
yeah. That's always interesting when you're in the grocery store and you're like, "Hey, what's going on? Duracell or whatever," just yelling across the grocery store. Everyone's like, "What is this guy yelling at this other guy
You
for?"
know,
But
I
it's
did that
funny.
with hindsight at Costco, and of course my daughter's like, "Why are you calling him that? What's his real name?" And I'm like, I don't know, but now I do, Brenton. And remember, I looked up his name, Paxnet,
Yeah.
right?
There you go. Plug. Good plug for PaxNet. It's great. If you don't know, you know a little bit. You can find out. So.
Pax.f3omaha.com. That's the plug. Um,
There
no,
you
tell
go.
me, did you pre-run too? Did you mention? Did you start pre-running at some point and have good
At
conversations
some point.
there?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Pre-running has been awesome. I got to give Chernobyl kudos again because I saw these guys pre-running. Can't remember how long it took me, and I was messaging him like, hey, how fast, how long, how far are these runs, how fast you're running, and eventually I think Chernobyl got tired of me asking all these questions on the details and specifics of the runs, and he's like, at some point you just got to jump in.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, okay, I guess you talked me into it. I'll get out there. So pre-run is awesome. I love getting out, and sometimes you're not able to get as much mumble chatter in beatdown, so you're guaranteed to get some good chatter unless you're running with some of those speedsters, and you're just trying to breathe the whole time. But hey, that's all right. You can always slow
Yeah,
down.
for sure. Well, yeah, I used to run with Trench quite a bit back in the day. If you ever run with him, and
Mm.
yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah.
pretty fast. But what curious as you think about your just relationships, and you mentioned free to lead. They talk about like male loneliness or just the sifter. Where were you at with some
Mm-hmm.
of your male friendships prior to F3? Do you feel like you've grown in that space, or maybe just refined some relationships that were already there?
I'd say I've grown, and I would say I've definitely grown in that aspect. Probably more so built and reinforced, honestly, relationships around F3, and part of that is kind of the overall focus. You talk about, what's your North Star, what's your overall goal in life, like, and I think those goals and emphasis, like waypoints you're trying to get to, change a little bit as you're growing. But I have friendships with guys from high school and college and stuff like that. And some of them, they just, a little bit of a misalignment. You can kind of see a little bit of sad clown going on in them. Some of them have been able to get them out, once or twice. But I've probably identified a lot more of the relationships that weren't really um, helping me to be, the best person that I can be, or were kind of, I don't think destructive is the best way to put it, but it wasn't constructive and it wasn't helping me be a better person, I guess you could say. Which is one of the things. I mean, I think we can all strive to do better, whether it's just doing a couple more Merkins, running a little bit faster, or just being a better dad. Being a better person in general. So that's been a big one, and it's nice to hear guys emphasize that, especially CAOTs. You never know what you're going to hear at a COT, but I look forward to probably COTs. I don't know if anyone else looks forward to it as much as I do, but it's always great to hear what either somebody has going on or some motivational point. I try and think of something meaningful anytime I'm doing my own COTs, because how do I give back to everybody else, just for everybody else who's queued before me, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. COTs are tough. I was trying to do the math. I think 230 some workouts I've queued in 6 years, and so my COTs they're getting kind of stale. I'm like,
Yeah. You're
I
running
either
out
need
of.
to stop queuing and just listen to other guys, or I need to really read some better books, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I love a good COT, man. And I don't know, for some reason, it's got to be a Sky Q thing, but like most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, the COT is something I needed to hear yesterday. It's like
Oh
always on
yeah.
point, uh, which is
Oh
super
yeah.
cool. But other kind of space when we think about like second F in relationships, we think about the like 2.0s and relationship with your M. Have you seen
Mhm.
any changes in those relationships as you've gotten deeper into F3, or how do those two kind of play together?
So I feel like they've gotten better. And so one thing, 'cause I kind of brought this up with my M specifically, like, oh man, I feel like I'm, so much better than I used to be, or things like that. And I think part of that's probably the physical fitness side of things. I feel a little bit better about myself from a physical fitness, but from, the father and companion that I am to my M, all those things, I felt like I improved a lot. And what she kind of emphasizes, I think I was really yearning and I was searching for something like F3, not knowing it. The sad clown in me kind of just wandering around. She mentioned, she's like, well, you were making a lot of changes and you were trying to be better before you got into it. And I think really what F3 did was it was the reinforcement that I needed. And that I think a lot of men need, just to help them understand, hey, you are doing the right thing, or that's okay to feel that way. That's normal. And there's potentially times where you can be in a hole and keep digging that hole deeper, as opposed to finding a way to climb out of the
Yeah.
hole. Like, how do you take a second, reflect, and climb out of that? But I definitely have improved on it. Try and improve every day. That's one of my big things. If you're not getting better, you're getting
Yeah,
worse. So,
either accelerating or decelerating for sure. What about your 2.0s? Are they old enough? Have you gotten them out for workouts at all?
oh yeah. Oh yeah, they love it. My 9, 6, and 3, all of them have gotten out, and they all love it. So yeah, they can't wait to make it for the next one. When's the next workout,
You have
guys?
boys or
Oh my
girls or
god.
mixed?
So, boy, girl,
Okay,
boy. So
okay, and they
yeah,
all
yeah,
like it.
yeah. Oh yeah. The 3-year-old, it took him 2
Yeah,
tries to get him out, but that was, I wasn't gonna make him come out, but that was his siblings. Big brother, big sister were going. He wanted to go. But yeah, they all love it. So
that's awesome.
my daughter, interestingly enough, is the one who's probably the best of all of them, but she's also a gymnast.
Oh yeah,
So like, I don't know. Yeah, it's a nice little poke to my oldest son. I'm like, your sister can do push-ups better than you. She can do Merkins better than you. And he's like, no, she can't.
that's
Hold on.
funny.
Let me show you, Dad.
That's awesome. That's helpful, right? Then you have some good competition there.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, curious because you mentioned and I just love you're just very open. I kind of mentioned at the
Yeah.
beginning, I haven't had probably enough time to be shoulder to shoulder with you in the gloom, but just feeling like I already really know you well. So I appreciate just you sharing your story. And I'm curious, you mentioned like finding that true north or what are those real
hmm
goals. What's that journey been like for you? Like anything in that space where you feel like you really wrestled and were able to work through something and come out on the other side, or anything that you feel like um, you would share just from that journey kind of finding that true north?
Yeah. So I think some of the underlying themes, just, I mean, trying to be the best person that you can be, and understanding, how you get there. So one thing that, I will bring up, and this is one of the things along my journey. I mean, there's a number of things. If I wanted to try and find the one that was the most resounding, I'd probably struggle, and the list would go on and on and on. We'd be sitting here the whole time, me going through examples. But one of the ones that's more recent. So, um, I had someone who's a coworker. He technically reported to me, but he essentially left a position he was at. He was a director, had 50 something direct reports at one point. Left that role, that company, just because of some things that were going on. And back half of his career, he's like, you know what? I don't need to do this anymore. I've done all of it. And he went to just essentially be an individual contributor. And then he came around to work for
Hmm.
me, kid who's 20 years younger than him, and trying to teach him new things. And he would always mention, oh, you're such a great boss, you teach me all this new stuff. And the one thing, also Randy Morris was his name, but the thing he would always mention, was adjustments to north, just adjustments to north. And that, I mean, man, the amount of things that, unfortunately, he passed, this last, just before Christmas, between
Oh
Thanksgiving
wow.
and New Year's, this last year. But that is one of the things that really, hits home with me. That, and this is a generalization a little bit, but if you can kind of hone in on the direction that you're trying to go, and for me, like I said, I circle back to how am I the best person that I can be, how am I best father, best husband, and beyond that, how can I leave things better than before? because if you're doing those things, it's really hard to feel bad about yourself, have people say negative things about you, and also not impact everything around you. Because if you keep leaving that impression, and that was one of the things Randy, I felt like, did a lot of. And so if I'm always, it's okay to stray a little bit. It's okay if you're adjusting back, and we're gonna do it. It's just kind of the nature of things. You're gonna over adjust a little bit east, a little bit west as you're trying to make your path, and sometimes you have to. I think it's one of the things from Free to Lead. And maybe I just envision this in my head where kind of life is like climbing a mountain. I think it's described that way in Free to Lead. Like there's no plateaus, like everything's always up. And I'll tell people that I work with, whether they report to me or whether we're just on a project, like there's a bunch of different ways to get to the top of the mountain. Sometimes there's the hard way, sometimes there's the easy way. Sometimes we need to purposely take detours and do switchbacks up half the way. It's going to take a lot longer, but it's going to be more efficient, and it's going to help us to get to where we need to be. And those are some of the things that I circle back to. So one thing you'll learn about me now is I am good at giving very long-winded answers. So you're not going to be lacking for words from me.
It's great.
But
I think one of the things like that F3 just really just shines a light on is we are all so different, but all so necessary, right? To make this whole thing turn. It's like you'll have some guys that are like, man, I was so nervous for that COT, and you're like, oh, I never get nervous speaking, but I was nervous to lead a weights workout this morning because I'm a runner that I don't really know, like I hope nobody got injured, right? Because of the weight. What's it like to love your dentist? Well, you're about to find out, where healthy smiles go beyond your teeth. No drilling, no needles, and no anxiety. Relax, it's Omaha Laser Dentistry. Welcome to better. At Omaha Laser Dentistry, Dr. Bullenparty uses the Solea laser, a CO2 laser that's used in all of his day-to-day patient care. He provides thorough exams, assessments, and treatments for things like snoring, tethered tissue, and extractions like wisdom teeth, as well as other surgeries. Check him out today at omahalaserdentistry.com. Discounts may be available for F3 Omaha members.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, I like so you're a leader at work, right? It sounds like you manage a team. How do you handle, because we're all human, right? There's like this humanness of leadership. Like, how have you been able to create a culture that allows for that and affords for like, hey, this is, even my leader, Black Tuesday, is going to make a mistake every now and then, and we're going to switch back with him, right? We're not going to like watch him fall off the mountain. But have you been able to do that, or what's any insight there?
Yeah. You had mentioned how open I am. I think I try and emphasize that point, and try and emphasize that failure is all right. It's okay if you're learning from it. That's the bigger thing. Like, what are we learning from? And when you emphasize that continuous improvement thing that I had mentioned, you have to talk through pluses and deltas, and you're gonna have to throw out. If you don't throw out a bunch of ideas, you're gonna have some duds. Nobody bats 1,000. That's the other thing that I throw out. So I try and emphasize to people, both whether it's PACs or people that I'm working with, that don't be afraid of failure. Like, if you're going to move forward, it's okay. It happens. Like I said, nobody's perfect. Everybody has it. Like I said, you can have a much lower batting average than 1,000 and still make it into the Hall of Fame. So don't worry about that. And then the other aspect is, a lot of people that are really successful are successful because they failed so many times, and they learn from it. And the failure, okay. A lot of failures are okay as long as you learn from it and don't repeat it. Not that there aren't some that can be really catastrophic, but it's okay. And for cues, I always tell them, like, hey, who cares? Just mix it up. Like, somebody's going into their VQ, like, no one's going to know that you didn't do what you're planning to do unless you tell them.
Yeah.
So if you're at that cue, just act like it's normal and just keep rolling with it. Like, I thought this hill was going to work. Nope, we're just going to keep running.
I love that. And it's so perfect, right? It's like the leadership development process in Q source, where it's like failure is an intentional part of the process, right? It's not something that we're even really trying to avoid, right? It's going to happen, and so let's deal with it in a healthy way and fail forward. So yeah, I love that.
Oh yeah.
Tell me, and so think about, you got your fitness fellowship and then this third F of faith. Where does that fit in, or what's been your journey in that third F space?
Yeah, no. So so my history. So grew up going to church almost every week. I mean, my mom was a Sunday school teacher. My first boss was my like high school Sunday school teacher who's like, "Hey, I can give you a job," kind of thing. So faith has always been something that's been there for me. And I would say that there's probably a little bit of pogo aspect with my third F
Ooh,
as
yeah.
well. Um, on how much are you thinking about the bigger picture of others outside of you? I know I that's one that I try and work on now, but I'm thankful for the way we end all of our beatdowns because if nothing else, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of that third F at each time. We can kind of talk about it, and honestly, it's strengthened with F3 as well. So circling back to that same thing, F3 strengthened all these things for me. I'm obviously sold on it, and that's why my wife can't get me to shut up anytime. There's a guy that I could potentially a friend's husband or something like that. I'm like, hey, you look like you'd like to get out in the gloom. But, but it's grown, but just like the climbing the mountain, as I mentioned, it's something that there are times where it's going to be harder than others. But leaning on the packs, I got to give a huge shout out to all the packs out there that just being able to be open and talk about it, and be I'm trying to think unashamed.
Yeah.
Unashamed of it. I think is a big thing because in today's society, I think it's a little bit harder to talk about it or say things, with just what the general aspect of things like you're worried about potentially offending someone, but the aspect of hey it's okay. And even if so I grew up Lutheran, my wife's Catholic, but I had a roommate in college who was Muslim, and just whatever it is, like I think the aspect of there's something bigger than all of us, being able to be open and talk about it is huge, and it's helped me with that perspective with that I do. I think it probably depends. I do emphasize the point of that it's more than just not F3 automatically Christianity.
Right.
Like, hey, we're gonna hone in on that, but that doesn't exclude anybody else just because everybody there's sad clowns all over the place, no matter what you're if you're agnostic or if you're Muslim, atheist, whatever it is.
Well, it's so much of that, and um, long story short, I have in my dreams a plan to write a book in the future and really trying to crack this nut of like just this purpose, identity, how it all connects together. And you made this comment that I just love is like the bowling ball stuff, right? The pogo, the sifter, the reacher, those concepts likely apply to all three Fs, right? Like
Oh yeah.
and I hadn't thought of it that way till you mentioned that. I mean, but it totally makes sense that we just, kind of we can wax and wane from that. So I love that, and maybe we'll get you on a future show to talk about about.
There we go. Yeah, let's do
But
it.
I guess I'm curious. How have you broached those conversations with guys that maybe are searching or maybe are struggling with like the third F being kind of Christian leaning? Like, how do you approach that? Because I'm sure as a site Q you ran into that once or twice.
Yeah. So, and I don't know that it's been very limited the amount of times that I've ran into it, but I've always circled back to it's about understanding and believing that there's more than yourself. Like the world is bigger than you. And I've kind of circled back to that one. And like, as much as, human instinct is to survive. And so there's a reason that there's a portion of you that focuses on you, but at the end of the day, it's bigger than us. This world's bigger than us. If we get squashed like a bug, it's going to keep going on, and that is probably one of the things that I've honed in on with others who maybe it's unclear to me when I'm talking to somebody about F3 where they fall on that third F spectrum, and say like, hey, it's not a requirement that you attend church weekly or anything like that, but the expectation is just that you believe in something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, most people seem to be able to get behind that, which is good. Or they come out and realize they're not ready and they don't come back for a while or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Um,
That's all right.
talk
That's
me
all right.
talk me through the other kind of side of the third F with like community service. Have you had a chance to get involved in any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's been somewhat limited excuses with kids and everything like that. It's probably been more on with respect to F3. So I would say it's probably more towards like donations,
Sure.
things like that, whether it be food. I would say the blood drive thing. I hate needles. I hate needles. Do not like needles. And so the first time I've ever donated blood was part of the blood drive that Squeaky helps put on, and so the free to bleed events. So that one has been huge, and I love doing it now.
Yeah.
I just you feel better about yourself, but also knowing that you're potentially helping others. And some of the packs that we've got in F3 Omaha, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I know we're talking about me right now, but man, the things that I've seen so many of the packs organize and put together to try and help the community is just, I mean, it's amazing. It really speaks to all the him that we've got here in Omaha and across F3 Nation. But going back to some of the other things, seeing your peers do that, I think it helps drive you to want to try and do that, to do better. So it's on my list. Need to do better on that one for myself. But man, gosh, what some of the guys do, it's unreal. It's amazing. It's humbling too. So.
Well, there's all these different seasons, right? Of like where you're at with your kids and your M and just life in general. And so I think that's what I think is cool is you see that whole spectrum where you're like, okay, you can kind of look across the circle at a guy and you're like, okay, well, he's given more time because his kids are out of the house now, right? So then you kind of can see like, okay, there is a time when I'll be able to give back more. And so then maybe financially is the way you give at this point in life. So yeah, I love it. Well, talk us through, the other big piece of F3, right, is reinvigorating or invigorating male community leadership, depending on which web page you read that from. And we try to do that with like your VQ or being a site Q, and you were site Q at Danger Zone. And just curious, how was that experience? What'd you learn? Any sort of advice maybe for other guys?
Yeah, it was awesome. Loved it. Where was I gonna go with that one? Save up if you're gonna ask guys to queue. So just advice for any future site queues. If you become a site queue in the summer, the guys that are consistent, don't ask them first to be on your queue schedule. Save them for when it's cold outside. That's the advice. Easier to fill up the queue schedule in the winter. You'll get guys to volunteer. You do realize how many guys are already leaders with respect to that. With queuing, like you'll get guys who reach out, but I also realize there's a lot of people going back to that comment that Chernobyl made to me, like eventually you got to make the jump. Sometimes there's some packs that need a little bit of nudging, and understanding the personalities and how they're going to take it. But don't be afraid to try and encourage people to either, whether it's queuing or in workplace, your family, hey, challenge them to try and do a little bit more. And once you understand, you get to know people a little bit better. You understand what things they might be comfortable doing versus what things are hard passes on doing. If there's a guy that is only hitting the weights workouts, don't ask him to queue, a running AO, things like that. But that's what I like to circle back to. And in my head, foundationally, my north, like, hey, how can we help this person lead a little bit better, or what opportunities do they have? Because thinking of things that people have helped me do. So shout out to Gobbler on that one. So site Q before Animal House. One of the times I was at the Danger Zone, he taught me how to count in cadence. And I don't know what I look like. I can only imagine. But he like stopped me mid group. He's like, "Hold on a second. We're gonna teach you how to count right now." I'm like, okay, this must have been really bad before this happened, but okay, we're gonna do this. And then afterwards, he's like, wow, you really picked that up quick. I'm like, well, I guess now that you told me. So
that's funny. Those little things like it's you just help somebody be a part of it, right? Just like take the time. I remember my first time counting was at a Murph, and Tonight Show was just like same thing. He's like, time out. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I'm just counting. And he's like, no, you count the
Oh yeah.
movements. Never. Um, what one of the things, and this is totally like my perception, but one of the things I feel like our site cues are like you're key in stewarding sort of a new guy's relationship with the group, right? Like they, you're the first site they show up to, and then you're kind of introducing them. What's your take on that, or anything you learned in that space that was maybe helpful to kind of get newer guys to, kind of lean in a little bit early on?
Hmm. So I would, I think a lot of the new guys, depending on how fit they seemed, I don't know how many times I told my V, or no, sorry, my FNG post story where I thought I was going to die and I almost threw up. So when I was at the danger zone, I was like, yeah, I was leaning on that trash can my
Mm-hmm.
first day. So you're doing 100 times better than I did. So like you're great. Like, cause you hear guys like, oh, I'm in such bad shape. Things like that. Like, no, you're fine. The other thing I would emphasize is we don't care what shape you're in. Come get in
Yeah.
shape with us. Like no one's gonna care. People are gonna pick up the six, be there for you. And I think as being a site Q, one of the things that really made a difference for me before I was a site Q, I think I was more focused internally, like how am I going to go a little bit faster? How am I going to push a little bit harder? And it switched to, okay, where's the six at? How far back is the six? Are we picking up the six? And realizing, you know what, it's not horrible to just hang out in the back once in a while. Just use it for some second F, third F conversations. And maybe that's what they're there for. Maybe some of those they don't, the fitness aspect's great, but some guys are out there just looking for a little more fellowship. So and understanding, circling back to understanding people and what motivates them, what is their motivators, what are they looking for, what do they need? Maybe they don't really need fitness that much. Um, Fitness is great, I love it, I couldn't do without it, but maybe there's some other guys that they need the other
Yeah.
aspects.
Man, that's well said, and I like that. Just sharing your story, right? It kind of helps initiate this like culture of like you're not alone. I was there too,
Yeah.
right? I think that's
Oh
super
yeah.
helpful. What as you think about leadership, your journey, your story, anything that you feel like maybe we didn't cover that you just want to get out there, want to share with people, or want people to know?
Oh man, that's a good one. What to know about me that other people? Well, I talk a lot. Now we know
Could be
that
you or
part.
like some really great, maybe great leadership advice or great, I don't know, anything that's on your mind.
Yeah. So leadership wise, I think don't be afraid to take the next step. That's one that I'll always look at. But sometimes the next step isn't. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about with you don't maybe moving forward is different and your progress. Maybe progress isn't
Mm.
increasing. Maybe it's adjusting, strengthening an area. And that's one of the things that I try to hone in on with respect to leadership, both myself and others. I know that I can be better at some certain aspects, and like I said, better maybe is less. Sometimes,
Great.
less is
Yeah.
more. So that's one that I'll probably hone in on. Understanding what's going to be most effective. What's the end goal? What are you trying to achieve? From a leadership perspective, I always hone in on this one with our teams at work. What is the goal? What's the overall goal? We're talking about all these things. We just spent an hour talking about a big topic. In 1 to 2 sentences, what is the goal we're trying to achieve, and are we moving towards that?
That's awesome.
Um,
I love that. That's perfect. I'm just thinking about your workplace, man. If you've got you and Stitches and Ketchup and OG
oh yeah,
Kickstand, I mean, you guys are got to be
yeah.
crushing it over there. What's that like to work with a
Oh,
bunch of other F3 guys?
it's awesome. It's essentially if I go into the office and I see Kickstand, I'm like, "Did you post this morning?" Like that's usually how it starts. How you doing? It's great. It makes for great camaraderie, but it's also awesome to be able to create hymns, guys that are leaders in their own ways, and helps make us all
Yeah.
better. So I love it. I love being able to be associated with, leaders in general and high
I
impact
love it.
people.
Well, one of the last questions we'd like to kind of get your thoughts on is just current state. You think about your life, where you at, where do you need prayers or encouragement when we see out there? What's something we could maybe check in with you on?
Honestly, so mental battle. I think I'll get stuck in my head a lot. So like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing today? And the thing, so just a little look into it. I'll tell my wife like sometimes, and this is a thing that just in our relationship we've gotten a little better on. And we're different. I will I will over focus on a specific problem,
Mhm.
and I will hyper focus. Like I'm an engineer by trade, and so if there's a problem, I want to fix it. And sometimes that can be detrimental when I said the less is more. Sometimes less thinking is better. So don't be afraid to be like, hey man, how you doing? Like, and what that does is that's kind of like the resetting the router. Sometimes the router stops working because it's got so much going on. Like you just need to unplug it for a second,
For
plug it back in.
sure.
Like, hey, how you doing? So
Yeah, man. Well, next time I see you, we'll chat some more about that. I'm no expert, but I have a lot of mental issues.
oh no,
So
yeah.
the one that's
I don't know.
there's one from John Acuff has this book called Soundtracks, and he basically says, evaluate your thoughts on, is it true, is it helpful, is it kind? Like, would you tell a good friend
Mm-hmm.
that same sort of thing you're telling yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, I'll be thinking about you, praying for you on that, because that's tough for
Thank you.
sure.
Is it true? Is it helpful?
Yep,
Is it kind?
true,
Coach
helpful,
said.
kind.
Oh,
Yep,
that's awesome.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like that. I
I'll
like that.
send you. I'll email you some.
I like. That's great. I love like short things that you can circle back to, key phrases, buzzwords. Oh yeah, people that I work with probably get tired of that too, because I will always be like, what can we use? What buzzword can we use? Or what can we use to circle back to that people will remember? That's not a long version. Just yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
This has been great. And just appreciate you and who you are,
Oh
man. I
yeah.
appreciate how you've leaned in, and just your leadership.
Thank
And
you.
just thanks for sharing that here today. So we'll do a little Damarama. I'll start. Brandon Flehardy, 38,
All
The
right.
Plague. Ah!
The plague. All right. Noah Velasquez, 36.
Black
Black
Tuesday, and it's
Tuesday.
sell, 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 sell. And that's
Yes,
because
sir.
of the stock market thing, which totally makes sense now.
Yes.
I always wondered
Oh
that. I
yeah.
was not connecting the dots with Black Tuesday, but
Oh
it's
yeah. People are always like, he must work in finance or something like. Nope, nope.
it's awesome.
Just bad luck, bought some bad
Yeah,
stock.
appreciate you, man. Thanks for your time today.
Yes, thanks a
You
lot.
too.
Have a great one.